The champagne fountains sparkled under the crystal chandelier as I stepped into the Riverside Country Club's grand ballroom. I'd chosen a simple navy dress, nothing flashy, just appropriate for the charity gala I'd been invited to attend. The invitation had come through my investment firm's community outreach program, and I'd been looking forward to a quiet evening supporting local causes. I should have known better than to expect peace when my family was involved. "What are you doing here?" My sister Victoria's voice cut through the elegant chamber music like nails on a chalkboard. She stood near the registration table in a glittering silver gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her perfectly manicured hand clutching a champagne flute so hard I thought the stem might snap. "Hello, Victoria," I said calmly. "I was invited to the gala." "Invited?" She laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. "By whom?" "The catering staff." Her friends, 3 women I recognized from her social circle, giggled behind their hands. They all wore the same expression of manufactured surprise, as if my presence was the scandal of the century. "I have an invitation," I said, reaching into my clutch. "Oh, I'm sure you do." Victoria stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming. "Probably printed it yourself at whatever little office job you're pretending is a career these days. This is a $5,000 per plate event, Maya." $5,000. Do you even know what that means? I did know what it meant. I knew exactly what it meant because I'd approved the pricing structure myself when the club's board had consulted with me about the fundraiser. But I said nothing, simply stood there with a slight smile. "Victoria, darling." Our mother's voice rang out across the ballroom. Margaret Anderson swept toward us in a burgundy gown, diamonds glittering at her throat and wrists. Her expression shifted from delight to horror when she saw me. "Maya? What on earth are you doing here?" "She claimed she was invited," Victoria said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Can you believe the audacity?" Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "Maya, this is not appropriate. This is a gala for successful business professionals and philanthropists. It's not for everyone." "I understand that, Mom." "Do you?" Victoria interjected. "Because you standing here in your discount department store dress, pretending you belong, is actually embarrassing. For all of us. These are our friends, our social circle. You can't just crash events because you're jealous of the life we've built." A small crowd had begun to gather. I recognized several faces, board members, investment partners, business associates. None of them said anything, but I could see the curiosity in their eyes. "I'm not crashing anything," I said quietly. "I was invited." "Show me the invitation then," Victoria demanded, holding out her hand. I pulled the embossed card from my clutch and handed it to her. She snatched it, examined it with narrowed eyes, then thrust it toward Mom. "It looks real," Mom admitted reluctantly. "But Maya, even if someone made a mistake and sent you an invitation, you must understand that this isn't your world. The Riverside Country Club is one of the most exclusive establishments in the state. Memberships here cost over $100,000 annually. The waiting list is 3 years long. These people are CEOs, entrepreneurs, old money families. They're not." She trailed off, but I knew what she meant to say. "They're not like you." My family had always seen me as the disappointment. While Victoria had married Richard Holloway, heir to a commercial real estate empire, and Mom had maintained her position in high society after Dad's death, I'd quietly pursued my own path. They assumed I worked some mundane office job because I never talked about my work. They assumed I struggled financially because I drove a practical sedan instead of a luxury car. They assumed I was jealous of their lifestyle because I didn't flaunt wealth. They assumed wrong about everything. "Mom's right," Victoria said, warming to her theme. "Do you know who's here tonight? The governor. 3 state senators. The CEO of Patterson Industries. The chairman of Westfield Bank. These are people who actually matter, Maya. People with real influence and real money. You being here makes us look bad. It makes it look like we're the kind of family that doesn't know our place." "Our place," I repeated softly. "Yes, our place. Victoria and I belong here. You belong somewhere else. Somewhere more suited to your level." Mom's expression was almost pitying. "Surely you can understand that, dear. It's not personal. It's just reality." Richard appeared at Victoria's elbow, his expression troubled. "Victoria, maybe we should." "Stay out of this, Richard," Victoria snapped. This is family business. My sister needs to understand boundaries. A distinguished-looking man in a tuxedo approached our group. James Whitmore, the club's general manager, wore an expression of professional concern. Is everything all right here, ladies? No, everything is not all right, Victoria said immediately. This woman doesn't belong here. I don't know how she got in, but she needs to be removed immediately. This woman is my sister, Mom explained, her tone apologetic. She seems to have gotten an invitation somehow, but this really isn't an appropriate event for her. We don't want to cause a scene, but could you please escort her out quietly? James looked at me, his expression carefully neutral. Ms. Anderson, is there an issue with your invitation? There's no issue at all, James, I said calmly. My invitation is legitimate. Her invitation might be real, but her presence here certainly isn't legitimate, Victoria insisted. Look, I don't know if someone made a clerical error or if she somehow manipulated her way onto the guest list, but this needs to be corrected immediately. My mother and I are long-standing members of this club. We've been coming here for 15 years. We know everyone here. We belong here. She doesn't. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding, James said diplomatically. The only misunderstanding is my sister's complete inability to recognize when she's out of her depth, Victoria said. Her voice had risen, drawing more attention. At least 30 people were now watching the scene unfold. She's always been like this, grasping at things beyond her reach. It's pathetic. Victoria, please, Richard said quietly. People are watching. Good. Let them watch. Let them see that the Anderson family doesn't tolerate social climbing, even from our own relatives. Victoria turned back to James. I want to speak to the owner. Right now. Get me the owner of this club immediately. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression serene. Victoria, I don't think that's necessary, James began. I don't care what you think is necessary, Victoria snapped. I am a member of this club. A dues-paying, respected member. I'm telling you to get the owner here right now so they can deal with this situation appropriately. My sister is not supposed to be here and someone needs to take responsibility for this disaster. Mom nodded firmly. I agree. Get the owner. This has gone on long enough. Maya needs to leave and whoever allowed her in needs to be held accountable. The crowd had grown larger. I could see phones being discreetly positioned, people pretending not to record while clearly capturing every moment. In the age of social media, scenes like this had a way of going viral. James looked at me again and I saw the slightest hint of amusement in his eyes. Are you certain you want me to proceed with this request? He asked Victoria. Are you deaf? Victoria demanded. Yes, I want you to proceed. Get the owner here immediately, or I'll make sure you're looking for a new job by Monday morning. Very well, James said smoothly. He pulled out his phone and made a brief call. The owner will be here momentarily. Victoria smiled triumphantly. Good. Finally, someone who understands how things work around here. Mom patted Victoria's arm. You did the right thing, dear. Sometimes tough love is necessary even with family. I just hope Maya learns from this, Victoria said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She's always had delusions of grandeur. Always thought she was better than her station in life. Maybe public humiliation is the wake-up call she needs. Richard looked increasingly uncomfortable. Victoria, maybe we could handle this more privately. No, Victoria cut him off. This needs to be public. Maya needs to understand once and for all that she can't just pretend to be something she's not. She can't walk into places like this and expect to be treated like she belongs. There are rules. There are standards. There are levels to society and she needs to accept her level. 3 more people approached our growing circle. I recognized them all. Catherine Price, president of the club's board of directors, Thomas Chin, the club's head of operations, and Margaret Sutton, the legal counsel. They all nodded to me subtly and I returned the gesture with the slightest incline of my head. What's this about? Catherine asked James. Ms. Holloway has requested to speak with the owner, James explained. She believes there's been an error with the guest list. An error? Victoria scoffed. That's putting it mildly. My sister somehow got herself invited to this gala, and she needs to be removed immediately. She doesn't belong here. Anyone with eyes can see that. Mom stepped forward. I apologize for the disturbance, but Victoria is absolutely right. Maya is not part of this social circle. She doesn't have the means or the standing to attend an event like this. Surely you understand our position. I see, Catherine said carefully. And you'd like the owner to address this situation? Immediately, Victoria confirmed. I don't know what kind of lax standards have been allowed lately, but this is unacceptable. The Riverside Country Club has a reputation to maintain. Allowing just anyone to waltz in diminishes that reputation. Just anyone? Thomas repeated. You know what I mean, Victoria said impatiently. People who don't belong. People who can't afford to be here. People who aren't actually successful or important. People like my sister. The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. We'd grown apart over the years, but I'd never realized how deep her disdain ran. Or perhaps I had known and simply chosen not to acknowledge it. The owner should be here any moment, James said, checking his watch. Though I should mention. I don't need your commentary, Victoria interrupted. I need results. How long does it take to get one person down here? Actually, Catherine said slowly, the owner is already present. What? Where? Victoria's head swiveled, scanning the crowd. Is it Mr. Pemberton? I knew he still had involvement with the club. Where is he? Mr. Pemberton sold his ownership stake 3 years ago, Thomas explained. 3 years ago? Mom looked surprised. To whom? To a private investment group initially, Margaret, the legal counsel, said. But 18 months ago, that group sold the property to a single owner who's been managing it through a trust. Well, get whoever that is down here, Victoria demanded. I don't care about the ownership history. I care about getting my sister removed from this premises immediately. I'm afraid there's been a significant misunderstanding, Catherine said, her professional composure cracking slightly with what might have been suppressed laughter. The only misunderstanding is whatever incompetent staff member let Maya in here, Victoria snapped. No, James said, his voice taking on a formal quality. The misunderstanding is yours, Ms. Holloway. You've asked to speak to the owner. The owner is here. In fact, you've been speaking near her for the past 15 minutes. The silence that fell over the ballroom was absolute. Victoria's face went blank with confusion. What are you talking about? James turned to me and I saw the full smile break across his face now. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to formally introduce Ms. Maya Anderson, sole owner of the Riverside Country Club and the entire Riverside Properties portfolio, which includes this club, the Riverside Hotel, the Riverside Conference Center, and approximately 400,000 square feet of commercial real estate in the metropolitan area. I watched the color drain from Victoria's face. Mom's mouth had fallen open in an expression of pure shock. That's impossible, Victoria whispered. I assure you it's quite possible, Catherine said. She pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Victoria. Ms. Anderson acquired the property through her investment firm, Anderson Capital Management. She's been the sole owner and primary decision-maker for the past 18 months. Every major policy decision, every renovation, every event, including tonight's gala, has been approved by her. But she's... Mom stammered, unable to complete the sentence. She's what? Thomas asked pointedly. Successful? Influential? Yes, she's all of those things. Anderson Capital Management has assets under management exceeding $800 million. Ms. Anderson personally manages a portfolio worth over $200 million. She's one of the youngest self-made investors in the state. This is a joke, Victoria said, but her voice lacked conviction. This is some kind of prank. It's not a prank, I said quietly, speaking for the first time since the owner had been summoned. Everything they're saying is true. You don't. Victoria struggled to form words. You drive a Honda. You wear normal clothes. You never talk about having money. Because I don't need to talk about it, I said simply. I'm not interested in flaunting wealth. I'm interested in building it, managing it, and using it for productive purposes. Like purchasing properties with potential, renovating them, and running them successfully. Margaret pulled out a file folder. I have the purchase agreements, title deeds, and corporate filings if you'd like to review them. Everything is properly documented. Ms. Anderson is unequivocally the owner of this property. Mom had gone pale. Why? I don't understand. When did this happen? How did this happen? I've been working in private equity and investment management for 12 years, I explained. I started small, learned the business, made smart decisions, and scaled up. 3 years ago, I founded my own firm. We've done very well. The Riverside portfolio was an attractive investment opportunity, so I acquired it. 12 years. Victoria's voice was barely audible. You've been wealthy for 12 years and you never said anything? You never asked, I pointed out gently. You assumed I was struggling because I didn't live ostentatiously. You assumed I was insignificant because I didn't brag about my success. You made assumptions, Victoria, and you never bothered to verify them. But we. Mom looked around desperately as if searching for an escape route. The crowd surrounding us had swelled to at least 70 people, all watching with rapt attention. You treated me like I was an embarrassment, I said, my voice still calm. You told me I didn't belong here. You demanded I be removed from my own property. You called me pathetic and said I was grasping at things beyond my reach. You said I needed to accept my level in society. Victoria's face had transitioned from pale to bright red. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't care to know, I interrupted. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you never considered the possibility that I might be successful in ways you didn't recognize. Richard had moved away from Victoria slightly, his expression a mixture of horror and what might have been respect. Ms. Anderson, I apologize. I had no idea. Most people don't, I said. I prefer to keep my business life private. But that doesn't give anyone the right to treat me poorly based on their assumptions. Catherine cleared her throat. Ms. Anderson, given the circumstances, how would you like us to proceed? It was the question Victoria and Mom had both been dreading. I could see it in their faces. The sudden, terrifying realization that they'd just publicly humiliated someone who had complete control over their access to one of their most prized social venues. Well, I said thoughtfully, Victoria did demand that someone be removed from the premises. Victoria's eyes went wide with panic. Paya, please. And she was quite insistent about it, I continued. Very loud. Very public. She wanted everyone to understand that certain standards needed to be maintained, that people who don't belong should be escorted out immediately. I made a mistake, Victoria said quickly. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't know I was the owner, I agreed. But you did know I was your sister. And you still treated me with contempt. The ownership revelation doesn't change what you said or how you said it. It doesn't change that you tried to have me humiliated and removed in front of 70 people. Mom stepped forward, her hands clasped in a pleading gesture. Maya, please. We made a terrible mistake. Victoria was just trying to protect the club's reputation. She didn't mean. She meant every word, I said quietly. And so did you, Mom. You agreed with her. You called me inappropriate. You said I wasn't part of your world. You apologized to the staff for my presence. You asked them to escort me out quietly to avoid a scene. The crowd had gone completely silent. I could hear the clink of ice in glasses, the soft music still playing from the orchestra in the corner, the rustle of expensive fabric as people shifted to get a better view. James, I said, turning to the manager. What's the club's policy on members who create public disturbances? According to the bylaws Ms. Anderson herself approved, James said with professional precision, any member who engages in behavior that creates a hostile environment or brings disrepute to the establishment can have their membership suspended pending a board review. And what constitutes a hostile environment? I asked. Verbal abuse, public altercations, harassment of guests or staff, or any behavior that disrupts the peaceful enjoyment of club facilities by other members or their guests. I looked at Victoria. Would you say demanding someone's removal based on classist assumptions constitutes creating a hostile environment? Victoria's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Please don't do this, Mom whispered. Maya, we're family. Are we? I asked. Because family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me tonight. Family doesn't publicly humiliate each other. Family doesn't make assumptions about each other's worth based on material displays. We made a mistake, Victoria said, her voice breaking slightly. A huge mistake. I know that now. But please, Maya, don't punish us for one error in judgment. One error in judgment, I repeated. Is that really what you think this was? Victoria, you called me pathetic. You said I was grasping at things beyond my reach. You said I needed to learn my place in society. Those aren't errors in judgment. Those are reflections of how you truly see me, or at least how you saw me until 5 minutes ago. I was wrong, Victoria said desperately. I was completely wrong. I see that now. You see it now because you learned I have money and power, I said. But if I were actually the struggling office worker you thought I was, would you see it? Would you think you were wrong for treating that person the way you treated me? The question hung in the air unanswered. Catherine leaned in close to me. Ms. Anderson, the board would support whatever decision you make in this situation. I took a breath, considering my options. I could have their memberships revoked immediately. I could ban them from the property permanently. I could make a scene that would echo through their social circles for years. They'd given me every justification and part of me wanted to exercise that power. But I'd built my success on being better than that. Victoria, Mom, I said finally. Your memberships are suspended for 6 months, effective immediately. During that suspension, you'll have no access to club facilities, no voting rights in club matters and no guest privileges. After 6 months, the board will review your conduct and determine whether reinstatement is appropriate. 6 months. Victoria gasped. But the governor's ball is next month. The charity tennis tournament is in 8 weeks. I'm on the planning committee for... You were on the planning committee, Catherine corrected. Your suspension removes you from all club committees and activities. Mom looked devastated. Maya, please reconsider. 6 months is so long. What will people think? They'll think exactly what they should think, I said. That actions have consequences. That cruelty isn't acceptable, even in exclusive social clubs. That family means something, or it should. You're destroying our social lives, Victoria said, tears now visible in her eyes. Do you understand that? This club is everything to us. Our friends are here. Our connections are here. Our entire social calendar revolves around this place. Then perhaps you should have thought of that before you tried to destroy what you believed was my dignity, I replied. You wanted me removed because you thought I was beneath you. Now you're being removed because your behavior was beneath the standards of this establishment. James gestured to 2 security personnel who had been standing nearby. Ms. Holloway, Mrs. Anderson, will need you to collect your belongings and exit the premises. You'll receive formal documentation of the suspension by courier tomorrow. This is insane, Victoria said, but she was already moving toward the coat check, Richard trailing behind her with an apologetic expression. You're being vindictive. You're punishing us for not knowing about your secret life. I'm holding you accountable for how you treat people, I corrected. If you treated me with basic respect, with the kindness any person deserves regardless of their financial status, we wouldn't be in this situation. The fact that I own this property is irrelevant to the fundamental issue of how you chose to behave. Mom paused before following Victoria. I never meant to hurt you, Maya. But you did hurt me, I said quietly. And the sad part is, you only care now because you've learned it was a strategic mistake, not because it was a moral one. She flinched, then turned and walked away. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with conversation. I could already imagine the texts flying across the city, the social media posts being carefully crafted, the scandals spreading through elite circles like wildfire. Catherine touched my arm gently. That was handled with remarkable restraint, Ms. Anderson. Most owners would have been far less merciful. I don't want revenge, I said. I want them to learn something. Though I'm not optimistic about the outcome. The 6-month suspension was wise, Thomas said. Long enough to be meaningful, short enough to not be permanent damage. Though I suspect they'll be much more careful about their assumptions in the future. One can hope, I said. James approached with a fresh glass of champagne. Your table is ready whenever you'd like to sit, Ms. Anderson. We have you positioned near the governor. He's been eager to discuss the club's expansion plans with you. I accepted the glass and took a moment to collect myself. The confrontation had been exhausting, even though I'd maintained my composure throughout. Part of me felt guilty for the public nature of my family's humiliation. But a larger part recognized that they'd created this situation themselves. As I walked toward my table, I passed Richard, who was waiting for his coat. He caught my eye and stepped close enough to speak quietly. For what it's worth, Ms. Anderson, I'm genuinely impressed, he said. Not just with your success, though that's remarkable, but with how you handled that situation. You could have destroyed them completely. You showed restraint. I showed consequences, I corrected. There's a difference. True, he acknowledged. I suspect Victoria will need some time to process this. She's not accustomed to being on the receiving end of reality. Are any of us? I asked. He smiled slightly. Fair point. I hope when things settle we might be able to maintain a cordial relationship. I've always thought you were more than you appeared to be. I just didn't realize how much more. Time will tell, I said noncommittally. The rest of the evening proceeded smoothly. I spoke with the governor about the club's planned renovations, discussed investment strategies with several fund managers, and quietly enjoyed the fact that I could attend an event at my own property without my family's interference, at least for the next 6 months. As the gala wound down, Catherine found me near the terrace doors. The board will meet tomorrow to formally process the suspension. I don't anticipate any issues. Your decision was well within your authority and, if I may say so, entirely justified. Thank you, I said. May I ask, will you tell anyone else in your family? About your ownership, your success? I considered the question. Eventually, perhaps. But I think I'll maintain my privacy for now. Tonight proved that some people only show their true character when they think there are no consequences. I'd rather see who people really are than who they pretend to be when they think I'm powerful. Catherine nodded thoughtfully. A wise philosophy, though potentially lonely. Potentially, I agreed. But I'd rather be lonely with the truth than surrounded by people who only respect me for my money. As I drove home that night in my practical Honda, I reflected on the evening's events. Victoria and Mom would spend the next 6 months locked out of their primary social venue, explaining to their friends why they were suddenly absent from every club event. They'd tell their version of the story, certainly, probably painting themselves as victims of my vindictiveness. But the truth would spread too. The 70 witnesses would share what they'd seen. 2 women treating a family member with contempt, demanding her removal, only to discover she owned the entire property. The story would become legend in certain circles. A cautionary tale about assumptions and arrogance. Would they learn from this? Would they genuinely change their perspectives on how to treat people? I wasn't sure. Suspending their memberships was a consequence, but consequences don't automatically create growth or understanding. Still, I'd done what I could. I'd maintained my dignity, enforced appropriate boundaries, and made it clear that cruelty, even family cruelty, wouldn't be tolerated in spaces I controlled. The rest was up to them. As I pulled into my driveway, my house modest by billionaire standards but comfortable and genuinely mine, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction at having stood up for myself. Sadness that it had been necessary at all. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Ms. Anderson wanted to confirm that all procedures were followed appropriately this evening. Also wanted to say personally that it was an honor to witness you handle that situation with such grace. The club is lucky to have you as its owner. I smiled and typed back, "Thank you, James. I appreciate your support tonight." Another text arrived, this one from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Richard Holloway. I got your number from the club's member directory. Hope that's all right. Just wanted to reiterate my respect for how you conducted yourself tonight. Victoria's process. I think this might actually be good for her in the long run. Best, Richard." I stared at that message for a long moment before responding. "Thank you, Richard. I hope you're right." The night was quiet as I changed into comfortable clothes and settled onto my couch with a book. Tomorrow the full fallout would begin. There would be phone calls, possibly attempts at reconciliation motivated by fear rather than genuine regret, and definitely ongoing gossip in social circles. But tonight I'd proven something important, not to my family but to myself. I'd proven that I could face their cruelty without compromising my own standards. I could exercise power without becoming cruel myself. I could set boundaries without becoming vindictive. And most importantly, I'd proven that my worth wasn't determined by their recognition or approval. I'd built something real, something meaningful, something entirely mine. Their failure to see it didn't diminish it. Their contempt didn't reduce it. Their assumptions didn't change reality. I was successful not because they acknowledged it but because I'd worked for it. I was valuable not because they validated me but because I'd created value. I belonged not because they accepted me, but because I'd earned my place through competence and effort. The Riverside Country Club was mine, not because of inheritance or luck, but because I'd seen an opportunity, assembled the capital, negotiated the purchase, and managed the property successfully. Everything I had, I'd built myself. And that truth remained constant regardless of whether my family chose to recognize it or not. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I felt a quiet peace settle over me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight I'd stood my ground, maintained my integrity, and refused to let cruelty go unanswered. Sometimes that's all we can do. And sometimes that's enough.